Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Everybody, and welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Instead of Bill's lovely voice, you get my dulcet tones instead. I'm Amy, and I am joined, as always, by my lovable co-hosts, Jordan and Bill. Before we get started, we want to remind you that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means that if there is something in the Cosmere you haven't read and are worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first and then come back and join the discussion. Because, you know, the internet, we're still there. In tonight's episode, we're stretching outside the confines of simply reading one of the Cosmere books and discussing it and taking a broad view of the different romantic couples in Brandon Sanderson's writing. We'll be assessing the evolution in his writing and character development. Prepare yourself to hear me potentially squee. Romantic stuff often does that to me. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we'd like to remind you that it's possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode live at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part in the discussion. You guys can talk too. This feels really weird.
Sorry, I actually was talking earlier. I was just on mute, and so.
Oh no! I'm sorry.
No, I pushed the button to unmute, and I was still muted. Anyway, no, there is no potential about Amy squeeing. It's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen, and it's going to happen multiple times.
Probably, yes, it probably will.
Also, as a reminder, this is episode 46, and today is December 16th, 2019.
I have failed.
No, you haven't. No. Keep going. Just
okay.
Roll into turn into the skid. Turn into the skid.
Okay. So the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our lovely listeners and patrons. Our show will continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, you can head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging a couple dollars each episode really helps us out as we work to improve the show. Our patrons get immediate access to our Discord channel, where we talk about lots of fun stuff. And we talk about the show, the Cosmere, cute pictures of my dog, whatever else, lots of things. It's a great community with a lot of great discussions. You can also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to our other bonus content, and even automatic entry into some of our giveaways. Today we have a new patron to thank, and I apologize if I get your name wrong. It's Cosmere N, so Coneer. So Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
We do. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, what an active chat tonight.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, seriously, I love it. I love having an active chat. It's just
I'm not gonna notice as much because I'm reading everything. Okay.
Welcome to my world.
I know it's crazy over here. All right, so as I already said, I'm in charge tonight, and it's a little interesting. So, full disclaimer: I am not an expert in everything love, but I have dated people. I am married, and I've read romance novels.
I was going to say, of the three of us, she's the only one who's in a committed relationship.
Yep.
So
I felt a little more like it's my responsibility to head this one up. So the other thing that I have a feeling there's going to be some other different. Sorry, what? Ouch! What?
It's like, because if we let these guys take control, who knows where we'll end up by the end of the night.
You wanted the
Look, if
other
it happens,
opinion,
we'll
right?
end up with me just doing more action scenes. So, we definitely need a little firmer hand on this one.
I have to speak. You can't make me laugh.
Jordan has a different definition of power couple.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's why Vin and Ellen are a power couple, right?
Because they murder things left and
I
right.
do mention they're a power couple. They are. I will get into that later. I did want to point out that I'm sure there's other cultures that do find other things romantic and do it differently. So I'm not sure how much of that comes into Sanderson's writing versus how other people from other places read his books too. Mm-hmm. So if you notice something and go, I don't know why that would be romantic, then think about your own cultural and your own upbringing and societal, everything else. So let's start out with Bill's favorite book, Elantris. We're going to go chronologically here.
What?
This is your favorite. Oh, shoot, it's Jordan's. Ah!
No. My favorite's The Emperor's Soul.
Yes, I totally. Oh my goodness, why did I think that?
I do enjoy Elantris more than a lot of people do,
yeah.
but it's far from my favorite of.
I wouldn't think like even the most diehard Elantris person. I doubt it's their favorite.
Yeah,
I actually would.
But
disagree with that.
I guess I meant to say it's more. Jordan likes it best out of us. Because you like Hrathen, right?
Least.
I like Hrathen the most, but the rest of the book I could really leave it.
I'm just shooting 1,000 here tonight. Wow.
It's okay. It wasn't like that was like our second episode.
It's been a long time.
It's been a little while.
Amy, while you were prepping for this episode, did you not go back and listen to every previous episode?
I mean, that's what I do for each episode.
I have
You're
to clean
slacking.
things. I have to wrap presents. I have to buy presents. Because, holidays, all that stuff. Right. So, we're on to...
Which way? Aren't we coming up on Kolos Head Munching Day?
We are.
Yes, we are.
You need to bring the card to me, Jordan, so I can stamp it.
It'll come.
With puppy.
Guys, actually, that's what we should do for our next episode. We dig into the state of the Sanderson.
Yes. There we go.
So, we'll move back to other plans. That's what we're doing next time, guys.
There you go.
So.
You find out here first. All right.
This is why you should be here live.
It's fun.
You can hear us plan
see
things.
Me flick water. And do sound checks. They're very exciting.
They
so,
are.
Radin and Serene, or Serene, I'm never going to get that name right. Their relationship is a little bit hard to get a lot of the details on, mostly because they spend like 80% of the book apart doing plot things. All the plot things. Would you guys concur?
Yes, this is true. Plot things aren't romantic.
I mean, it depends on the kind of book you're talking about.
Very true, actually.
I mean,
Yeah. A romance book, the plot is all
right.
how will they, won't they, are they together or not, just all that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No,
or the early seasons of The Office.
So I always feel like I bring this up every time we talk about it, but it feels like the relationship is not as fleshed out and fluid and 3D as a lot of the other ones, and I kind of attribute part of that to it being his first published book and also that he wasn't married yet, because I just feel like once you have that happen, you get more insights, and you also have a built-in person to go, does this look right? Would a woman or a man think this,
Well, and it's also that way. The beyond even that, it's also just the simple fact that we don't get to see their relationship really grow.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of see it just happen, and they have a marriage of convenience at the end. We know through words of Brandon that things go rather well afterwards as far as their relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, I got the feeling they got along, and they both knew it was a political marriage, but they're like, hey, I don't mind this choice. This seems okay, and it seems like they had good conversations between I can't remember what they're called, the glowy balls, the seance?
Seance.
Seance. I was close. But I mean, so they're doing the glowy ball things that talk and are cute. But they like Skype, It's fun. It's magic Skype.
It is magic Skype. That is true.
Yeah, that's exactly how I imagined it, actually. I was just like, wow, they're like totes hanging out online.
Mm-hmm. They're just doing that.
Yes, everybody, that was my impersonation of a teenage girl. I am very, very bad at it.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I hate doing that.
Bill's hip. He's with it.
Get down with your bad selves.
Oh, my goodness. So, I mean, in general, this is the book that I remember like the least out of the other books. It just doesn't stick as well. But I remember that like Serene just doesn't have as much to make me remember her by. And I feel bad about it because she is an okay character when I'm reading it, but then when I'm not reading it and I'm reading other books, I just kind of know that she's there, but I don't remember a lot of her details. One interesting thing I found a word of Brandon about Radin, and he said that he is the character who, from day one, actually deserved to be king, because Radin's just a really good guy.
And he definitely has, both, and the thing they probably bonded the most over is the fact that they both truly did prioritize the people above everything else.
Yeah.
Which, you sort of would like that in rulers.
Yeah, I'd prefer that.
With the ruling.
Yeah, you don't want them to just be focused on making each other happy compared to making the people happy.
And so, but, like, in a situation like that, where it starts off with a political arrangement, the fact that they find out, oh, no, we actually really agree on what our role is here. It's kind of a big deal, actually, for what's essentially an arranged marriage.
Well, especially when you're looking at Radin, because his father has not been the best example of a king. And so for him to see a member of royalty who actually agrees with his philosophy, it's kind of a big deal.
That would be rare for him.
And it's an extra bonus that it's his fiance, and so he doesn't have to worry about she's going to be undermining what he's trying to accomplish and everything else.
Right. I mean, they really both kind of hit the jackpot on this one. And it makes me wonder why we don't have arranged marriages. Because honestly, at this point, I'm ready to try anything. So,
well, frankly, if you look, Brandon is a fan of the trope of perfectly arranged marriage.
I was noticing that I was like, a lot of these are arranged, and a lot of them work out well.
But a lot of it's because the people who are a part of the arranged marriage approach it with what I would, and this is clearly speculative because I have little experience with arranged marriages. They approach it with the right attitude, where they're first like, oh, okay, well, I could make this work. And then they find the things that they're actually interested in that person. And so it's just one of those things where it is tropey, but it works at the same time.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as romance novels and stuff build it up as, oh, well, they're so hot or they're so wonderful or whatever, that it really matters that you get along in day-to-day life. Because if you don't, then you're going to drive each other crazy and you're going to be angry and things aren't going to work out well.
That's sort of one of the amusing things about the Adel and Shallan relationship is their first reaction when they see each other is, gah.
Yeah.
And they just sort of like, both of them think, holy crap, they're gorgeous.
I did well. And
yes, gorgeous is the right word for both of them.
But the poor Shallan, she doesn't think that she's pretty because she's always been comparing herself to everybody else.
But meanwhile, Adolin sees her and he's just like, whoa.
To him, she's an exotic beauty. This
whereas she's going, I'm not curvy, I'm not dark like them, I don't have the dark hair, I don't have all these Alethi features, and so it's
very true. It's a very, she's comparing herself to a very different people, and that's exactly what Adolin's interested in.
Well, the thing is, Alethi do have a lot of features in common with the Vedans, I believe, but the difference is that she has some Horneater blood, which gives her the red hair.
Which hair, especially if it's a color like that, it stands out a lot more and it makes a bigger impression and things.
Well, it's a big thing for them since their hair, quote unquote, breeds true, which is still one of the weirdest genetic things Brandon has ever come up with.
Yeah. But I mean,
it's neat.
I have blonde children and a blonde husband, and I was blonde as a child, so it.
Yeah, but hair color if your husband, for some reason had black hair, they wouldn't be, salt and pepper shaker haired the way the Alethi are.
It's such an interesting concept because it's like it's black and blonde, and just
not just brown because it's a mixture, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's a big point of pride for them because they're like, it's a sign that, you know, it's sort of like a conquest thing.
Got some impurities in there, yeah.
And, you know, normally races in, you know, kingdoms tend to be horribly xenophobic about these types of things, but the Alethi, it's a point of pride.
I thought that... I don't remember. I thought that there was actually criticism of Adolin for that.
It could come either way. I think with Adolin, he's able to get away with it because he's Adolin.
Exactly.
Well, it comes both ways. It's at the end, I think it's the end of Oathbringer, where they finally have, you know, agreed that they're going to get married, and they have the conversation, or not the conversation, but she has the thought of how they completely think to themselves, oh, this is it's every time it's something fine, they like it, they attribute it to his Alethi side, but anytime it's something questionable, they're like, oh, that's improper, he shouldn't be acting like that, that must be his impure side. And
if
so
if there's something that you can blame it on, you do that.
It's a weird juxtaposition where they try to have it both ways.
Right.
But they're too lovey-dovey at that moment to give a crap about what anyone else is thinking. And it's disgusting.
And they're adorable. So. Should we move on to Mistborn then?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Mistborn, we have 2 couples in this one. Only one of them is on screen very much, though, at all. The other one is only really referenced. So there's Vin and Elend, of course, and there's also Kelsey and Mayer.
There's a little bit more that you can look at also, but let's go into these, and then there's a couple of others to bring up.
Oh, I mean, if you want to, I'm totally... Oh, that's right, Breeze.
There's Breeze and Ariane. There is... we never even see it on screen, but there's Ham and his wife.
Yeah, and
then there's also the... You know, because Vin has crushes on 2 other men at some point, because she early on did have a crush on Kelsey. It wasn't a fully romantic thing. It was just an admiration, but she was young. He was older, and you know, it was just sort of this.
She can admire that, and so it
and she describes it as sort of a young infatuation. And then also don't forget about Zane.
Yes,
because while it wasn't a fully romantic partnership, there was attraction played with there. Very subtly.
Well, and for a lot of the same reasons that she was attracted to Kelsey, or, you know, as a younger, when she was younger and less experienced, he had that air of mystery and power about him.
Exactly.
He was the bad boy.
Bad boys do have an attraction.
I mean, it's easy to forget because she's so capable, but Vin is very young, and so...
Yeah, she's in her very early 20s or something by the end, right?
I think she was like very early, maybe 20 or 21.
Yeah, I can't remember her exact age, but
she was incredibly young even at the end.
Yeah, I remember. It's really easy to just... I think I got married at like 22, something like that. So yeah, I mean, you can do your romance, and your brain and hormones do stupid things really easily. So, with Vin and Elend compared to Radin and Serene, you get a lot more development on screen, especially because, I mean, there's her going to the balls as Vltava, and you get to see her flirting with him and him flirting back, but I don't know that she's at first realizing that's what she's doing. They're just kind of exchanging quips. And he probably thinks that's what she's trying to do, but she's not fully aware of it because she hasn't been in that social circle as much.
And you've got to remember, you know, she's grown up on the streets, and so in her mind, romance means something very different.
Oh, yes.
Than in genteel society.
The red light district and such.
Exactly.
Is not true romance. Oh.
Well, and on top of it, she's very... Everything's a competition to her when she's growing up, because anyone can betray you, as Reen literally beat into her. And it was one of these things where she's looking through that lens. And so at first he shows up and she's trying to figure out what his angle is. And the concept of he's flirting with me would not be her first instinct.
Would not be her first thought at all, no.
Yeah. In her mind, romance is dominance. Like, it's a competition. Yeah, like you said,
power.
It's a competition. It's a matter of who has the upper hand. It's a matter of manipulation. And Ellen is so freaking genuine that it just completely throws her off guard.
So it occurred to me that in a lot of romance books, there's can be the trope or the cliche or whatever that, like, one part of the couple will be flirting with the other one and the other one will just have it go over their head. And it is used here, but at least it makes a lot more sense than a lot of the times that I've read it in other books, because it's so cliche and forced. Whereas here it makes sense, as we just discussed, for why Vin is not as fast to lean into the relationship. I mean, for one, she's also trying to be a spy, too.
Well, and she's also trying to rob him.
Yeah, there's that, too. So, I mean, she's got lots of different complications to that.
Layers.
Layers. All the layers.
Are there onions on Scadrial?
Probably.
Totally.
Yes, I think they are. They talk about eating lots of vegetables that are sad and wilty. But I'm like, oh, I don't think I'd want to eat there.
You don't want to eat wilty onions?
No, I don't want to eat onions at all.
Sounds like a cover
That's just a
band
me
name.
thing. Oh. Wilty onions. It's bad. Anyway, so I did have the note here that it's like having potential couples like verbally spar, like have all the little witticisms and quips and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't just a modern book thing, because if there's any Jane Austen readers, then there's lots and lots of that in there too, but a lot of the times it's harder to recognize some of it because the language is a little bit older, more antiquated compared to now.
There are some just pointed barbs in Jane Austen.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's not just a modern author thing, it's a fun way to flirt. So
Exactly.
And it doesn't always work out as smoothly in real life as it does in the books, because they have time to polish it and everything.
Right.
What? Writers, you're telling me that's not how it goes in real life as well?
There's far less ums and yeah and all of that.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
Yeah. I know. Put it down from you. You make a note.
Oh, I will.
So you mentioned earlier, Jordan, that Sanderson uses a lot of arranged marriages and things like that, arranged relationships, and Vin and Elend is one of the ones that is not.
Yeah. I actually think the Vin and Ellen relationship, I'll grab this, is probably the closest we get to Brandon's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Romeo and Juliet.
Well, his theory on how love should work type of thing. Because he has that whole speech when Ellen goes into to Sazed to try and get advice. He finds, Sazed gives him the whole lock and key speech, and I have it here if you guys would like me to read it, because I think it is interesting.
Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, see, where was it? What does that mean? It means that you two are right for each other, Sazed said. I'm not supposed to make such judgments, and truly this is the opinion of a man who hasn't seen much of you two in the last few months. And our differences? Ellen asked. At first glance, the key and the lock it fits may seem very different. Different in shape, different in function, different in design. The man who looks at them without knowledge of their true nature might think of them opposites, for one is meant to open and the other to keep closed. Yet, upon closer examination, he might see that without one, the other becomes useless. The wise man then sees that both the lock and key were created for the same purpose.
Speaking of Sazed, that's another relationship we should talk about. Because
Yeah.
Sazed and Tindwyl is...
Oh, that is
that is one of the most raw relationships.
It's an interesting one for sure.
It really... Well, I mean, because Sazed's a eunuch. But there is...
And she's had the opposite problem of being forced to have all these children, and you can bet it was not a pleasant experience.
But there are clearly romantic feelings between the two. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different kind of relationship than any other that really Brandon has explored. And I think he does it beautifully.
He does. I I felt kind of rushed making the list. So I'm sure I've missed more people, more relationships.
But it's what makes Tindwell's fate all the more heart-wrenching.
Oh, yeah.
Because poor Sazed. Sazed just, especially in book 2 and then book 3, Sazed just gets raked through the coals.
Mm-hmm.
Getting in touch with his ruin side so that he can handle both.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad point.
Well, it's something that he says in the book that talks about how death or ruin isn't just the destruction of things, but the peace with that destruction as well. Mm-hmm. And what Sazed goes through in book 3 is coming to terms with his suffering.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very interesting relationship, and one that you can tell he didn't want to spend a full book on that relationship. I think that relationship is a little too... That's a difficult relationship to write, I think.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And especially at the point that he's writing Mistborn, I think he would have just barely been married.
Yeah. Or he would have been married
he wrote all those originally before.
When he published it.
Yes. Obviously he wrote all of them before, but then edited and so
and even with early on in marriage, you need a little time to figure out all those little things and get a lot deeper with stuff compared to when you're first married. At least this was my experience. So,
absolutely.
But no, it's a very interesting evolution from the Radin and Serene relationship, which, look, let's face it, it's the fairytale ending. They did live happily ever after and had like a bazillion children, according to Brandon. And so,
and it feels very much like the generic fantasy couple, and and they're still a good couple, but you compare them to everybody else, they just don't have the same depth.
Although that said, it's really interesting because Serene was actually based off of a friend of Brandon's named Amy. And I think she was just this friend. I don't know this for certain, but I think she was taller than most girls, and she was self-conscious and didn't recognize the good things about herself.
And that is something. Like, I had a friend in high school, and she was a little bit taller. She's like 5'8". And I think she was a little less secure, and she got married a few years after me. And I mean, those are real traits that really do exist out there. And it just doesn't always as interesting in text and how things play out. And I mean, the book is more focused on fixing the political problems than on developing the relationship.
Oh, hey.
You were cutting out for a second.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, everything froze for about 5 seconds. So.
Oh, weird. Anyway.
All right. But look, some people do get fairy tale endings, and I actually feel more than people realize actually get them. But we're a naturally cynical people.
Well, the other thing is, even a fairy tale ending for a person, that doesn't mean everything's perfect. It just means that things work out.
And you don't take it out on each other, which is something that I've noticed happens with other people and with myself as well. Like, if I get frustrated, I snap more at my husband, and I shouldn't. And then I apologize afterwards, and he does it in return too. And we're getting better at it, but it's an easy thing to have that happen. Even if that's probably the last person you should be snapping at, but they're most available.
They're there, yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so Doc makes a comment actually in the chat about fairy tales don't tell about the end. They just, like, it's the video ends, or the book or movie or whatever ends with, and they lived happily ever after. Whereas, and that's where Elantris ends. But with Mistborn, there's 1.5 books kind of after they start getting together.
Yeah, and Mistborn ends, and they all died.
And then everybody's dead. Yeah.
No, well, for example, in Elantris, just when you're telling a story, period, the thing that's interesting is pacing. One of the ways you pace is where you end the chapter. a bomb explodes and the chapter ends, people want to keep reading.
Yeah.
Happily Ever After, the book ends. It's a satisfying conclusion. They can walk away and be okay with it.
And be okay with it, yeah.
And so that's sort of what the fairy tale ending is they've ended on a high point. The next day, who knows what happens,
They did dishes together. It was not very exhilarating.
It's like, have you ever read The Princess Bride?
Yes.
Like the book, not the movie.
Yes, I've read the book.
I don't read movies, Bill.
No, like read the book, not seen the movie. I'm sorry. I word together good, bad sometimes.
Real good.
Anyway, but if you've read the book, at the end of it, there are actually two endings. There's the fake one and the fake one.
Oh, yeah.
But basically what happens is in the ending, it's like Inigo had a relapse, or Wesley had a relapse. Inigo's wound reopened. Buttercup's horse threw a shoe, and Fezzik lost the way.
And then you hear the troops coming or something like that.
And they heard the prince's troops coming after them, and then the book ends. Okay, now
you're like, what?
This might be a spoiler for some people, but even if you've read the book, it might be a spoiler. The book is published as the abridged edition. There is no abridged edition. The book is actually written. There was no S. Morgenstern. When I realized that the first time, it blew my mind because I was absolutely certain I wanted to read the unabridged version just because I was a book nerd. But so there's a fake, that's the fake bad ending, and he actually ends up writing his own better ending supposedly. But again, it's where the story ends. If it ends before all that stuff happens, it's a happily ever after. You wait another day, all sorts of bad stuff happens. Well, shoot, But that's what sequels are made of. Sequel hooks are made. And so, anyway.
Plus, it's just not that interesting to see a couple, not really fighting, but sort of, nipping at each other's heels because, you clogged the dishwasher or whatever. And
you keep leaving your socks on the floor or whatever else that people do that are irritating, So, yes.
Yeah.
So Vin and Ellen.
Ellen and Vin do have the very Romeo Juliet ending of dying together, which is sad. But at the same time,
but I mean, I can understand it with how much they've gone through. That it'd be like, can we just take a break? Can we rest? Because I am tired. Because I mean, as much as I would be like, yeah, I would totally love to if Ellen was an option as someone like that's a character. I'm like, yeah, that would be someone that I would consider. That would be very. I call him adorkable, kind of, just because he's such a book nerd.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
But, oh yeah,
their relationship. Yeah. They got to, flirt a little for one book. Then they were literally under siege a second book as they were trying to figure out whether they wanted to be together. He almost
and keep
died.
The city together. Yeah.
And then they spend book 3 with the world.
And then
ending.
they have the battle wedding, and so
yeah.
And so it's just their entire romantic arc was just one long adrenaline rush.
So much stress, and that makes everything more difficult.
Well, it's what makes when we get to see them in Secret History move on, and Kelsey is like, "Well, wait, you don't have to go," and Vince,
she's like, "No, I'm good,
dude.
We're done.
I am done.
We've finished.
I'm not a workaholic like you, dude. You need to just go home."
Yeah, because it's as much as I would love to be Vin in that relationship, I don't think I'd want to go through Vin's life because that was too much. For that would. Ugh.
Well, I like to think that they're on the other side of the beyond, sipping martinis.
And again, I've brought this up several times. Their relationship is very, very much parallel to the one in Les Miserables. It's just because you have.
Is it Cosette? Is the girl in that one?
Vin is Cosette. Vin is absolutely Cosette. And Ellen is Marius like you wouldn't believe. So
I still need to read that.
Yes, you do, or at least watch the movie.
I know. I just need to watch it. I got too many things on my to-do list.
Yep,
but
it's worth it. So
yeah, and then I mentioned there's Kelsey and Mayer, and that one you only really get it from Kelsey's point of view, and it feels like they were very much revolutionaries together, and we don't know how they got together either.
Well, and it was also, they were part of a triangle, because remember, Marsh was in love with May as well.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. Well, and
there was a little thing with Spook.
I think the better comparison is Bonnie and Clyde, because they were thieves together.
Yeah, that is a good comparison.
And I think it's interesting. It's clear that he loved her. Like, this isn't some shallow thing.
Oh, absolutely loved her.
Yeah, but at the same time, he can't let go of the world. And it's what Vin says to him. You have a lot to learn about love. Mm-hmm. And for Kelsey, he still hasn't found the person who can help him let go of his work. Mm-hmm. And he may never. He may be completely he's too ingrained in finding another secret, when it turns out the only secret was love.
Oh.
Wow. That was like poetry, man.
Thank you.
No, it's very reminiscent. It's very reminiscent of the scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade at the very end, where he's reaching for the Grail and his father sort of pulls him back and he's like, let go. Mm-hmm. It's fine. And he's able to. The girl isn't, but...
Yeah, he has to grab her and pull her out or something, doesn't he?
She falls.
Yeah.
Oh, she falls?
But, she was a Nazi, so no one cares.
Oh, is that... I'm getting my movies mixed up.
Yeah.
That's right, there were Nazis in that one.
We're talking about the blonde.
There's two... He has like a couple blondes.
The good blonde.
The good blonde? Okay.
Which is saying something about the girl in Temple of Doom when the Nazi's the good blonde.
Yeah.
What, you don't just like people who just scream at random intervals?
Like it's so old so fast.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah. It's, I don't know, it's very interesting because that whole plot, basically everything is so crisis mode the entire time. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get a bead, yet at the same time, we get some incredibly tender moments
Cute
of love.
Moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. They're really cute together, but man, they got lots of stress. Lots of stress. They have to save the world and the city and everything else.
It's interesting. They don't get the quote happily ever after, but honestly, like when you see it, like Jordan said, when you see them in Secret History, they're heading towards happily ever after. It's just in a different stage.
Yeah. Because the world was too crushed and broken, and they dealt with too much of it to want to stick around for that. Because they would have been put into leadership positions still.
Oh, yeah.
And that would have put more stress on them. And
oh, gosh.
They'd had plenty.
So instead they became, figures of legend.
Yes.
It is one of my favorite things
the last emperor.
In Era 2, when we get Marcy like staring at Vin's statue, just being like,
I know.
Oh, she's so so perfect, and just she probably had this.
The
all
ideal of
out.
femininity, yeah.
And you're just sitting here. Oh no, she was so broken.
So much PTSD. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, she was such a mess.
But oh gosh, she was awesome.
Yes.
Speaking of Vin, if you want to see an amazing piece of fan art, check out Brandon's social media from today.
Yeah, there was another nice one there.
An incredible piece of fan art of Vin.
So pretty.
And so it's Mistborn Monday.
Miss Cloaks are just fun in art in general because you get to have them swirl and do all the swoopy stuff.
One of these days I will get my Awakener with a Miss Cloak. I want to mix the magics, man. Boy, don't me down.
Era 4.
He's crossing the streams.
Should we move on
perfect.
So speaking of eras, let's go to Era 2 because it's one of my
favorites. Should we go to there and then go back to Warbreaker? We can do that.
Let's go straight into because we'll stick
with Scadrial. We can do that. So, oh my goodness. So speaking of triangles, there's like a mini one. There's Wax and Steris and Marasi. Well, I guess I should say Marasi, Wax, and Steris because it feels better to have Wax in the middle because he's the one they're fighting over, kind of. Anyway,
but they don't ever really fight over him.
They don't. No. I mean, it's even weirder.
One tags in after the other.
Well, I just remember the feeling at the very end of Alloy of Law, because like I know so many people who were mad at that ending, and I thought it was brilliant because it's just Brandon saying, no, you don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
And it works so well.
Yeah.
Like to be fair, at the end of Alloy of Law, we don't like Steris. We haven't seen any redeeming
she's like
qualities about Steris.
Off screen for like a huge chunk of the book.
And the only thing we don't ever see her personality. We see the wall that she's put up. Mm-hmm. And so we see sort of the fake Maris. Or not Maris.
Yeah. Steris.
Sorry, Steris. Marasi and Steris are Maris and Fraser.
I don't know, it's a German phrase that means my not quite woman.
Not quite human woman.
So, referencing Frasier for the record.
Anyway, but yeah, it's a very interesting twist, and it's the kind of thing that it really is upsetting until suddenly you start to see who Steris is, and she becomes one of the best characters in the Cosmere.
So awesome.
So for me, I actually I didn't like Marasi with Wax. That didn't work for me because one, there was a little too much hero worship for me to feel
Fair
comfortable
enough.
with that relationship. But more to the point, Wax is someone who is motivated by duty and what he perceives it to be. Now, his concept of duty morphs throughout life. But, and so to me, it made so much sense that he would eventually go back to what he saw as his duty, which would be
to all the people who need him to be financially stable.
And so it was one of those things where I feel like it was beautifully set up as, no, this is not like, this may be the decision part of him would like to make. The part of him that ran off to the roughs likes that decision, but that's not the core of who he is.
Right. Yeah, it's just so cool how that ended up working out, because
I mean, I was rooting for Marasi at first because I just didn't have a good grasp on Steris, but once I really got to see her, I was like, oh, I like this better. This is nice. Well, and I want to say this real quick. So I did like that Marasi did not get written into the trope of being spiteful and angry at Steris and trying to be just like, oh, I'm all huffy about this because she got the guy. It's not fair.
Was very, very briefly.
I mean, yeah, and I can that's a very human thing to have that moment of, it's not fair. Why wasn't that me? And then she can go, but I can be happy for my half-sister, right? Half-sister. And and see that I wouldn't have been happy with Wax, and that's who he chose, and I'm going to respect that. Because there's so many books and tropes and movies and everything that have the other woman, or the woman who got scorned, taking it out on everybody when they should just look at it and go, well, if I really do love the guy, then I should be happy that he's happy, even if it sucks for me. So
no, it's just it worked out very, very well, and it's really interesting, especially when you think that originally Alloy of Law was going to be it.
A one shot, I know.
It was going to be a one shot, and we didn't know that we were going to get those other three until just suddenly Brandon pops up and says, "Oh, by the way, here's 2 more Wax and Wayne books."
Not just one, but 2.
And so, like, it was actually written to be a one shot, and so you think about that ending just as a one shot, it
wouldn't have been as satisfying.
It takes a very different context. I've actually seen a lot of discussions talking about Era 2, and I think that a lot of people are kind of weirded out by the fact that Era 2 is 4 books while the rest are trilogies. And honestly, the way to look at it is that Era 2 is basically Shadows of Self, Bands of Mourning, and The Lost Metal. And Alloy of Law is essentially an extended prologue for Era 2. Alloy of Law introduces Era 2, but I'll entirely keep it in my head as part of Era 2, and it just works better that way for me. Because the other 3 were written or planned together.
Yeah.
And Alloy of Law was planned to be by itself. And so
it doesn't fit. I mean, it's the same characters, but it doesn't fit as well into it.
All I know is it's more Mistborn books, and I don't care what the number is, as long as the number is one more than what we have now.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I'm cool with more. Give me more.
Again, as soon as Brandon said Allomantic gunfight, I said, sign me up.
It would be fun.
And so,
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. The other thing that makes that relationship triangle a little fun is the fact that Wayne is sitting there about trying to sabotage things because he doesn't like Steris.
He doesn't like Steris. He gets along with her by the end of it, though, right?
Not
but he's
really,
still not,
but
is he?
Wax,
He just tolerates her.
It's more that Wax tells him, "Stop."
Oh, that's right.
Now.
She's like, "Stop. Be nice."
Speaking of Wayne, can we talk about Wayne's romance?
I don't
There's
know what
two.
you call that relationship.
Well, there's a couple of. The first one was when he was
that
unfortunately in love with a woman who was never going to love him back.
Oh, that's right. I forgot her name. What's her name?
Rednet.
Renette. Yes, he's always getting threatened with his life that she's going to kill him for stepping inside or touching things.
Well, not just that. She's
not into him.
She's a
she
lesbian.
doesn't like dudes.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of my
never
favorite,
gonna work.
That's one of my favorite things is the conversation between him and Marcy, and Marcy's like, she's dating another woman, and Wayne, and he's like, just a phase. What one that's lasted 20 years?
Yeah, it's a bit more than a phase.
No one carries a torch quite like Wayne.
Well, my favorite,
but then he rebounds like nobody's business.
But my favorite thing about Renette, when he goes in to basically tell her, hey, I've moved beyond this.
It's over.
She's like, thank you. And he's like, well, just hypothetically speaking, if the two of you... And it's just like, Wayne, thank you for staying on brand.
Oh, Wayne. Wayne.
Justin to bring the PG-13.
Yep.
But yeah. Well, but then again, then Milan and Wayne.
Which it seems like it's more physical than as much. But I mean, they do get
The thing is, they both have lived their lives pretending to be other people. Mm-hmm. And it's something that they bond over.
Yeah.
Like somebody mentioned just imagining a scene where they're correcting each other on accents. And it's just amazing to think of.
Mm-hmm. They'd have some fun conversations with it when it's just the two of them.
And so it was one of those, like, when it first happened, I was just like, wait, what's going on? What's happening? And then I thought about it a little bit more. I was like, yeah, I ship it. Okay. All right, let's go.
I can do that.
It's one of those things, if you, going back to Era 1, where Sazed's speech to Ellen about the lock and the key, these two are very similar. They're more like lock and lock. But two things, they're very similar to one another. And those types of romances, they either become just these whirlwind romances that don't last very long, or the commonality helps it last a very long time. But they don't tend to mix well. It's the ones that are too similar do tend to have issues.
Yeah.
See, and I don't think that they're too similar. I think it's a commonality, but I don't think that they're too similar at all.
We'll just have to see what happens in Lost Metal.
For one thing, Milan is hundreds of years old, and Wayne is a man-child. So
she comes across to me as very childish, despite her age.
I wouldn't go quite that far to say childish. I get what you're saying, but I think there's more to her than that.
I think she comes off more that way around Wayne, because she gets more serious in other situations when she has to.
And so does Wayne.
Whereas Wayne does not. Yeah.
I'm just gonna straight up just disagree with you, and I don't think we're gonna agree on this one.
Well, I'm just waiting to see what happens in Lost Metal and see where that goes.
Oh, well, that's fair.
Just waiting for Lost Metal. Why isn't it here yet? Brandon should have secretly released it 6 months ago.
Stormlight 4.
Because Rhythm of War.
Brandon spoiled me by releasing 2 books I didn't expect. Now I'm always expecting unexpected books.
And they're not coming.
So we think. Could be dropped this week.
Well, I mean, we are getting a State of the Sanderson.
Yes.
So I'm so excited about the State of the Sanderson. I remember last year I was like staring, like just hitting refresh on his page, on his blog page, just waiting for it to come up.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, is he waiting for a package? No. Just an update on the State of the Sanderson.
Anyway, all right, Amy, did you want to take us to Nalthus?
Nalthus, where there's pretty flowers and lots of colors.
I don't think we ever saw anybody give anybody flowers.
But that's the economy.
Yeah.
So we have two different couples, except one isn't really a couple. But so there's Ciri and Susebron, and then there's Ravenna and Vasher, the two V's. So Ravenna and Vasher feel like, to me at least, and my husband agreed when I asked him, is that it feels like they're shooed in like they're supposed to be a couple, but it never actually happens, and they just kind of stay mentor-student instead. But it, like, the way they start out makes it feel like everybody's going to expect them to be a couple, especially because you have Ciri and Susebron, who are their own couple, and then you have the two sisters both pairing up. But
there's definitely people shipping them.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, it gets even more complicated in the fact of what happens in later books when she's hunting him down, and the bounty and Roshar. So I don't think that ever, if there was anything between them off screen, it didn't stick. So I don't, it almost feels like Vasher is almost too jaded to let anything happen either.
Or maybe it did and something happened. There's also, I mean, there's
a huge chunk of time that you don't know what happens. So it's, I don't know.
Let the fanfic writers descend upon that vagueness.
Yes. But yeah.
And then, of course... What?
Yeah, but I was going to ask if you guys thought of it the same way, but it sounds like you kind of both...
I picked up on some...
Did you pick up on anything, potential. Jordan?
That said, again, it's a matter of hundreds of years old versus very young and naive. Mm-hmm. So...
For me, the relationship is just
although she's older than her time, and he again is sort of a man-child in some ways.
For me, that relationship is just too mentor-student at that point. But who knows once they start adventuring what'll happen.
Exactly. We'll have to wait for Nightblood, the book, to figure that out. There's the squee.
There was a second one. There was one earlier. So anyway, I had made the comment in my notes that I was like, I just know I have a soft spot for gruff male protagonists. Like, I've noticed it. I'm like, yeah, if they're grumpy, then I usually ship them in some way. So yeah, that's what happens. So then we have Ciri and Susebron, who are just adorable in
another
their
perfectly
own
arranged
awkward way. Yeah, this one's in a sort of arranged marriage, except it was supposed to be Ravenna and not Ciri, but that got changed. So
the accidentally arranged marriage.
Yeah.
It's very, what's the word? Beauty and the Beast.
Because he is tall and sort of scary, even though he's very nice. He just doesn't have a tongue. And
even tied into the old fairy tale, not just the Disney, but it's a matter of, or like it goes. There's even some Greek stories that go into it, and I can't think of them off the top of my head, unfortunately.
I do tend to think of him as more like looking like a Greek god, the way they describe him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing about their relationship, I think it's very much supposed to echo Radin and Serene, but with us actually getting to see their romance bloom in their very odd circumstance.
Yeah, I did really like that there was a lot of subversions of expectations, at least within romance stuff, because usually in romance novels and whatever else, it's always the guy is big and strong and he knows everything and he's all experienced, and the girl is young and naive and has to be taught everything and everything else. And here it's swapped, that she knows a lot more of the world than he does, because she's actually been out at it and he hasn't been able to talk to anybody other than like doing signs and things like that.
Although she still has been sheltered, but she has...
Yes, but...
She's pried and looked, and she's been fascinated by all these things.
And she talked to the cook in the kitchen to figure out how all those other things happen. And just, I mean... Yeah, so, I mean, the beginning of the relationship's very strange, because she's sitting here going, okay, so I gotta make a baby, and he's going, what in the world am I supposed to do? What is going on?
Oh my God. He's like, I think we're doing something wrong. The baby should have appeared by now.
And she's like, oh no.
Well, it goes back to my whole theory of, did they purposefully not tell him? I don't think it's because his priest purposely didn't tell him, because we find out by the end.
Just never...
I think they all expected someone else to do it.
Yeah, obviously Joe over there will do it. No, Bob will do it. No, I don't need to do
what
it.
About Arden Gregg? Maybe he'll take care of this. Nope.
Arden Gregg, yeah, totally Arden Gregg.
So Arden Gregg just wanders the Cosmere, teaching children about the birds and the bee.
Look,
not all heroes wear capes, Bill.
The axe hounds and the what would they?
Well, we know that Arden Gregg does enjoy himself some erotica. So.
It'd be the chickens and the chickens and the Kremlings.
There we go, the chickens and Kremlings. Gosh. That's better because they both have the C's. Oh boy.
AVR.
Oh goodness. So, anyways, but it was just a cute relationship in general, and just seeing Ciri and Susubron become friends first, and then they move on to other things.
Again, with Beauty and the Beauty and the Beast connection, that song, There's Something There, or I think there's something there that wasn't there before. It's, it's just, I imagine, that's kind of the image that I get when I see her teaching him how to read and all that stuff. And it's just because it's this very sweet and innocent, he's big and imposing, but he really is just very innocent at heart.
Because he hasn't been allowed to experience much. So you're going to stay more sheltered and childlike then.
Exactly.
So, but it's a cute relationship. I like it.
I'd be very interested to find, that's one of those. Warbreaker wasn't my favorite of the stories because I just felt it dragged in certain places. I would be very interested, though, to see, it's one of those, I'd love to see where it goes, though. It set up things that I'm very intrigued by.
Yeah, I mean, what happens with the army of what are they called?
They're
not
awakened.
Are they
lifeless.
Awakened? Lifeless, yes.
Kalad's Phantoms.
Yes.
Well, those are two different armies. Kalad's Phantoms went after to kill the...
Yeah. They're the stone... Are there stone ones, right?
Yeah, that's Kalad's Phantoms.
Yes. So, I mean, you've got two big armies that are going to go duke it out, and Ravenna and Vash are going to go try and assist with that. And
that said, one of the armies is very, very, very squishy, and the other one is made of stone. So I think we know who's going to win.
Yeah, but you have to wonder how much collateral damage is going to happen before they stop them all. So... so there's plenty of things that could happen.
I'm also kind of interested to see what Susubron can do.
Oh my goodness, yes. That's going to be interesting.
I'm very interested to see Nightblood, particularly after seeing where Brandon has progressed as a writer. Because he's written some stuff that you're you put him back on Nalthis and you're going to see some interesting stuff going down.
The other thing that'd be interesting, I'm very interested in Ciri and Susubron's relationship now that they can actually talk, and how that actually kind of upsets the relationship dynamic they had a little bit. They can communicate better, but their relationship was sort of based on how hard communication was between the two of them.
Right.
And so I think it'd be an interesting thing for Brandon to explore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. Because that's a really difficult... I don't know of any real-life counterparts to that sort of dynamic. Most people don't suddenly regrow tongues.
No, but I mean, I could almost see it comparable to if...
Well, not with that attitude.
That's true.
I almost see it as more of a spouse coming back from war or something like that. And so everything is shifted for one of them, for both of them, because I mean, one of them's had to live without them, and just one of them's been at war, one's been at home, or whatever. And so it'd be interesting that's the only comparison I can really see. And I know Outlander has that it's her with her first husband, but that whole book and show and everything get weird. But yeah. That's me. So, yeah.
Yep. Can we take a step back to Scadrial for a second? Because there is one romance we didn't talk about.
Oh, Breeze?
No. Wax and... what's your name?
Bleeder.
Palm slash Bleeder slash
Palm.
Lessie.
That's...
Lessie.
Yeah, because we didn't
I had to look them all
up
because I couldn't remember. I did have notes, but then we moved on from it. So, yeah, but
sorry,
I mean...
I didn't see it.
Yeah, my notes are talking about Steris providing the right kind of comfort after Wax is recovering from...
Because that's a fascinating just story. Again, it's heartrending. That is one of the most heartbreaking.
That is super raw and terrible.
Situations.
The only thing that got me through that was the fact that the next book was coming out so quick. Just like, better, because you got to fix this mess.
It ends on such a downer.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just the fact that, she's been manipulating all this time. She did love him. That's got to break his trust. Not just trust, but his belief that love can happen.
Well,
and that's what
broke
was so
his
cool
belief
about
in his
Steris.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that shatters everything.
But that's one of the things that I love about Steris is at the end, she shows him that it's not just, everything isn't horrible. It doesn't have to be. She shows him that he can love. Which, because he loved Lessie with all his heart.
Oh, yeah. She let him really grow and become who he wanted to be out in the roughs compared to being stifled in the city and stuff. And
yeah, it's such a good, again, well told relationship story.
Well, and there's the whole other layer that gets added on when when he's on death's doorstep and he finally has that conversation with Sazed, and Sazed walks him through the cosmic calculus that someone who's 1/8 of a god has to do, and he just goes through all right, knowing what you know now, and that she that I needed you here and that she was going to let that happen, what would you have done? Okay, now what would you have done knowing that she was going crazy? Would you have wanted me to take control of her? Well, no. Okay, would you wanted me to to kill her? Now, knowing that I have to kill her, would you have wanted anyone else to do it? And Wax says no. That's who Wax is. At the end, he's all about duty. And he would see that as his duty. And he walks him through the fact that he did give him what he wanted, but there's no way he could really have understood that that's what he wanted in that moment.
Yeah.
And it just adds this whole other layer of what do you do when someone you love goes bad?
Yeah.
God, so rough.
Oh, it's raw. It's a very, very raw book.
Oh yeah. I've only read it twice, and I don't know if I can make myself read it for a long time now.
Yeah. That's probably one of the hardest ones of his to read. Which is interesting because, again, I remember feeling it was so forgettable the first time I read it.
Oh, yeah, and then you come back to it and you're like, oh,
you're like, oh, it wasn't forgettable. I was just sheltering myself.
It wasn't forgettable. I was blocking it.
Yeah, I didn't want to think about it.
It's so rough.
Rather think about the happier things.
Yeah, but no, it's what makes the relationship with Steris afterward all the more rewarding.
Absolutely.
And she doesn't force, she doesn't push anything like that. She's there when he needs her, and that's just what he needs. And it's which we know for her is not an easy thing. Because she's someone who goes by schedules and dates and logic, and it's just probably a little difficult. Then again, knowing her level of planning, maybe she's figured out, okay, we'll schedule in 2 hours of morning here. Yeah.
But I don't know. I really like it.
It is good, but it's heavy.
It really is. I for some reason I love the hard emotional ones though.
Well, it's
self-flagellation is what it is.
Blacker the berry, sweeter the juice.
What?
He froze again. He froze.
Okay.
And we froze again.
There you go.
Yay! We back?
We're back.
Yep, we're back.
Okay.
I was worried that you guys were just laying out on the joke completely and just not saying anything.
We're like, I missed it. So.
Yeah, it's just one of those. I don't know. It was just one of those. It was rough, but You got to have the good for the bad.
Yeah, because if you don't have the depth, then you can't have the highs. As much as it stinks to have the depth.
Well, and Brandon's good at writing it, so we'll put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Should we move on to...
So, do we want to...
To Shalon?
Move on to Roshar, or do we want to save that for another episode?
Oh,
because there's a lot on Roshar.
There is a lot on Roshar. I'm just trying to think. I mean, we can.
Do you want to do...
We could just do White Sand and save Roshar for later, because Roshar, you have all the complications of Adolin's love life, and then we have...
There is a lot of...
And then you have Dalinar after that.
Dalinar's two relationships, yeah.
So we'll can of worms Roshar, and we'll...
or we'll see if we have enough time after we do White Sand to try it, or...
Well, I mean, we're getting...
When are we supposed to
already?
end?
I normally start wrapping up around now, so let's go into Taldane.
Okay.
It'll be a little bit longer episode than usual, but I think we're good to...
We can do Taldane. It gets summed up pretty quick.
Yeah.
So in this one we have Duchess Chrysala and Prince Gavaldan of Elis, and then we have Aes and Melis. I'm totally slaughtering names today. Mm-hmm. So this is another one that's for Chris. It's mostly off screen.
There are also hints of Chris and
Kenton.
Just slight ones. There are hints of it in there. Like, I don't know that there's anything major, but
you can tell that
they definitely have moments.
Yeah.
All I know is Brandon has way too many really important characters whose names start with K.
All the Ks. But here's another arranged marriage. I'm guessing it was an arranged relationship with Chris and Gavaldan. And he's a prince, she's a duchess. It probably was just power, consolidating more power.
Although she seems like she legitimately...
There's genuine fondness, if not, at least, at the minimum.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it sounds like he was a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
It just also sounds like too much time passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, you don't know how long do we know how long it takes to get from Dayside to Darkside? Is that what it's called? It's Darkside, right?
It's a long trip.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's however long it took him to get there, and then the time he was there, and the time that he was thought to be dead, and then it takes her all that time to get there. So she had time to grieve, I'm sure, because she seems pretty composed whenever she talks about him, which takes time to do when you lose somebody that close.
Well, and on top of it, he's gone to the underground so that he can help, what he feels are the people who need him, and she's grown into I'm trying to do the same thing,
that he was doing,
and they just grew apart. Like, they don't have that connective tissue between them anymore. So even if she has that fondness for him,
they've changed.
They're very different people. I mean, they're motivated by different things at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And once you lose the thing that connects the relationship to begin with,
it's hard to rekindle it.
Yeah.
Especially when things have changed as drastically as they did for them.
Well, and things are as... Not dire is not the word, but there were had so many
stakes.
Yeah, they had so many pressing things that she's just like, I can't deal with this. Let's move. Let's cut our losses here and just move on.
She ends up blackmailing him too, kind of to make sure that the things that she needs done happen. And
he says, I have these things that I'm not going back. Mm-hmm. I have no place back there, and I have reason to be here.
Yeah, I have things I need to do here. And
well, and it's also, she's already mourned for him. Like, she's already emotionally let him go. This might be a bad comparison, but so my grandfather passed away last year, but he had false start of, his heart's only working at 12%, and then he holds on like another 3 months after basically, oh no, he could die at any time. And since we had all sort of mourned him multiple times, you sort of at the end, you're just like, but are you dying though? Really?
It's the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, and it's just you've sort of mentally already mourned them, but they're still around, and so them it's not like you wish death upon them. Like, she's not mad at him for being alive, But at the same time, she can't emotionally invest herself in someone she's already sort of emotionally divested herself from.
Right.
Yeah. She was still holding up his torch of political reasoning and whatever else, but not any real personal connection.
She had moved on.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing. It's the kind of thing where you see it in movies and stories a lot, where there's somebody who has to mourn, and it absolutely breaks them, and they have the opportunity to get together, and there's like, I can't do that again. It's like, I've already lost you once, and I can only lose you once. So
I can't do it again. Yeah, it's too much. And there's a quote from, I think it's Gavalden saying, he's like, you've outgrown me, or something like that.
And that kind of makes sense if you think of it as, and this is the part where it being a graphic novel, I think we're losing a lot of depth
you can't get that same depth.
But I took that line to be, he's a prince, she's a duchess. So there was a power dynamic there. This was probably an arranged marriage. And him saying, you've outgrown me, is probably an acknowledgement that when we got together, there was such a difference between us that you still had room to grow. Because if it's like any traditional arranged marriages, the higher power person's probably going to be older than the lower power person, because it's arranged for that purpose. And so,
in a non-romantic aspect, it's similar to the Kelsier-Vin dynamic, because in the end, Vin outgrows Kelsier.
Yeah,
she passes him, and she no longer needs him the same way that she had before. She has something else, and it's just the same sort of thing. It's like the relationship they had was very, very young, very not childish, but childlike, and they've reached a point where that sort of relationship is no longer possible.
You're trying to fall in love with a completely different person.
Yeah, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is with a relationship, you try and grow together. When they're separated and they're not part of the relationship, what would have been a perfect match after, years of diverging paths no longer is.
It's sort of the inverse of the Radin and Serene relationship, where they happen to grow into the same path and then happen to be a perfect match for one another. This one's, they were together in some way, it seemed to be fine, and then split.
Yeah.
The other relationship in White Sand is Aes and Melis, and you don't see as many scenes with them, but the few that you do are really kind of cute and quintessential good family group.
And that's the thing, is it's a very different stage in the romance than you see in a lot of other places.
Yeah, because usually in romance novels and whatever else, it's, we're getting together and it's so wonderful, and will they, won't they, and everything with that. But with them, they have a child, and they've obviously been married a few years, and the interesting thing with them is that a lot of times it's usually the man that has the job and the woman that stays home. But here, she has the big demanding job, and he's staying home more, at least. I don't know if he has if he has a job as well.
Which is interesting, because in the original prose version, Aes was a man.
Was the man? Oh, okay. See, I still need to read the prose one. But yeah, it was an interesting, change of dynamic and stuff, and there's, it seems like, you don't see as much detail with their family, other than you can just see from the few conversations and scenes that they're good together, and they understand each other, and they know how to work well together, and
just enough to establish that they're definite liabilities when you're working up against organized crime.
Yeah, so that when they're threatened, you're like, oh no, it's her family and everything else, which allows Kenton to come and help save them.
Right.
Yeah, in any action movie, small children serve only to be collateral.
Oh, and it's so much worse when you're a parent, because then it like hits you that much harder, because you're like, oh, that could be my kid, and what would I do in that situation now that I actually have someone who could be that easy hostage or whatever? And that's hard.
It's like the very ending of the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. You know,
oh, it's been forever.
Because it's at the funeral and he walks away from Mary Jane because she would be in danger because of what he does.
See, and I thought you were referencing when Green Goblin has the 2 train cars by his hands. This is why only the fool chooses the path of the hero. When some psychotic madman will force you to make some sadistic choice.
At least he acknowledged he was psychotic. Yeah. I mean, that's a step. You know, that's
there's progress there.
Exactly. All right.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean, the graphic novel format makes it harder to have as much depth to it, especially because the romance is not really much of the focus on that one either. Right. It's more plot.
Be very
little of
interesting
it happens
to see
on screen.
How would we get a hold? Is there a way to get a hold of the prose?
Yeah, I've got the prose. If you just go to, I think that's the one. If you go to the 17th shard, no, that's the other one. White Sand is the one that you get if you sign up for Brandon's newsletter on his website.
Okay.
There will be like a confirmation email that you get, and it's either in that one or the first. Yeah, that there will be a link to the prose version of White Sand.
So I think I have it downloaded. I just need to read it, actually.
And the first segment of it is in
Arcanum Unbounded,
right? As well.
Yeah.
Just a very brief segment of it, but
that is one that'd be interesting to see what the differences are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's worth reading.
Well, it's Brandon, so I probably will.
Now it's the 8th book he ever wrote, so it's very early Brandon, but it's still, because it's a draft that never got published.
Diet so Awesome is still awesome.
This is true. This is
just go in with expectations and you're fine.
Mm-hmm. So. All right, so I guess we'll save
save Roshar for
another time.
Roshar's so big.
Right.
So much. So, our next section, as if our loyal readers or listeners, wow, you're probably readers too. That's all good. Remember, we're going to say thank you to our patrons, and we'll thank you because of them. We have monthly giveaways, and if you remember our last episode, we said we were going to have a giveaway, and we never got that post up. So we are so
things have been a little crazy on this end. We apologize.
Yeah. I apologize for temporary blindness.
I can't apologize for mine. Yeah. So, yeah, real life gets tougher. So we have the picture that for our audio only people of a paperback of The Way of Kings.
Which I'm still just very impressed can actually be condensed into a paperback version.
I know, it's crazy.
I didn't think we had the technology.
But we have created it. So for reals, we're going to get a post up in the next few days. So if you're listening to this not live, then you'll probably see that post.
Yeah, pay attention to our social media accounts.
Yes, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Yes, they're all there. So we wanted to give special thanks to Brandon Sanderson's online store at store.brandonsanderson.com for sending us so many awesome goodies to share with our listeners.
Just saying, it's the Christmas season. Find your favorite Cosmere knot, whatever they need.
Yes. There's lots of fun things. So as a reminder, we're now discussing a wide range of topics, like romance, from all across the Cosmere.
Sorry, I just imagined just Spanish guitar after that, like romance.
We need to have more sound effects. So we want to hear from you. Write in and ask your questions or suggested topics for us to discuss during the show. Give us your feedback about how you think we're doing, or present your own theories and let us know what you think of what's going on in the Cosmere. You can send all questions and suggestions to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. You could even have your email read on air. Ooh. So, yes. So we're doing last thoughts, or is that after? That's after.
That's after.
Okay. I'm not used to being
are hard,
host.
aren't they?
I know. So, Bill, what's up?
Not much.
Thing.
You?
I'm hosting. It's great fun.
Oh, you want to know what my personal project? Like
yes, your personal projects. You don't have it in the text. Yes.
Well, when Bill's not trolling Amy.
I'm supposed to have a life outside of the podcast? No.
Yep.
When I'm not here, I do have a bunch of board game reviews at the Innkeeper's Table at www.innkeeperstable.com. I do post about games on social media, so make sure to check out my profiles over at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of those are at Innkeeper's Table. I promise I will get the Hedgelord review done. I just have been having all sorts of fun little technical difficulties pop up in life for the past 6 weeks now. So
specifically in his eyes,
which are kind of essential for writing things
and playing games.
Yeah.
Except for there's actually one game that I want to do a review of. It's called Nyctophobia, and it's like everybody except for one person plays blindfolded.
Oh.
It was actually created by a woman whose father was blind, and she wanted to create a game that he could play. And so I think that's one that I would love to check out and do. You're basically people who are in the woods trying to escape from either a serial killer or a witch.
Or Shia LaBeouf.
No, not Shia LaBeouf. Not actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
If you don't know what that is, look on YouTube. It's hilarious.
Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
I still haven't quite recovered from seeing it. And I saw it months ago.
I need to rewatch Actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
I do too.
So amazing. Anyway,
so yeah. Again, check out my profiles at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Innkeeper's Table.
So yes. So Jordan, where can we find your work?
Well, twitch.tv/splicestream is going to be the best spot to catch my stuff. This Saturday morning, I'm going to be playing more Breath of the Wild. Because I'm being bullied by Doc FG's child, who is weaponizing adorableness, and I don't appreciate being bullied by it. But apparently I have to do it.
A 4-year-old is waking up emotions that Jordan thought long dead.
Yeah, I buried those things like a Vulcan. But no, so I'll be doing that Saturday mornings. Then that's going to be a lot of fun. So you should definitely show up for that. And if not that, go to my YouTube. Please subscribe. Need to hit 100 so that my name doesn't look like, a stream key.
Like some Linux.
Yeah, like
it's all fun.
By an actual cannibal, Shia
LaBeouf. So as for me, I have Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. And my Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay. So I finally, as of the 20th of December, I can finally have my person who I made the Secret Santa prop for. They're going to open theirs, and I'm going to open the one that they sent me. And so then I can finally post pictures about that, which will be so nice. And I finished making my second set of arm socks. If anybody knows what those are.
Aren't those just called gloves?
They're slightly different. So,
I'm sorry,
if you have a costume...
you have to explain now, because now I'm curious.
So, basically what it is that if you need to have gloves that go all the way past your shoulders and, cover up part of your chest and stuff like that, you take a pair of nylons, you make fingers, you attach fake fingernails, and you cut a hole in the crotch for your head to go through so that you can wear that, and there you go. So you got...
That's not arm socks, that's arm pants.
They call them arm socks. I didn't name them.
Why do you need that?
So I have my Lore Olympus hair address goes to my shoulders. So I need them to go past my shoulder. They have to go over my shoulders.
Huh.
So
this is an actual
do
thing, and you're not just pulling my chain and.
I'm totally not pulling your chain. You look on YouTube, you will find tutorials on how to make arm socks, which are of the devil, and I hate making them so much.
This is starting to sound like kids eating Tide Pods all over again.
It's like Warbla. Remember, Bill?
Stop making words up.
So yes, so that's what I've been working on, and will be hopefully working on making D4s and D12s and D8s and all of that stuff, plush versions sometime soon, and hopefully have an online store with my Square account and blah blah blah. So yes, that's what I'm doing.
Huzzah!
Yes. For those of you who want to support the show but can't become patrons just yet, for any reason, we'd love it if you would head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a review. It'll really help us out. 5 stars is totally awesome, but go with what you want to do. And we like it when you write things up, because then it's better than just like, oh, they got 5 stars, whatever, compared to these people are so awesome. You totally should watch them or listen to them. It's totally amazing.
Yeah, I recently learned that apparently reviews don't have a huge impact on where you show up, but people watch, like a lot of people subscribing within a certain amount of time, it really helps. So writing a review actually is helpful, because then people read it and think, oh, this is worth paying attention to, because people have said good things.
Yeah, someone took the time to write it up.
Just be sure, don't reference actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. I don't want people thinking this is some sort of different type of podcast.
I don't want him coming after us. I don't want him to know about us. So please keep us off his grid.
Here at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, we do not endorse cannibalism. No.
Usually.
We do not endorse cannibalism. Anytime.
Except when it's very necessary.
No, Jordan.
9. Anyway, so Jordan, do you have any final thoughts?
Mostly that love is a mushy, mushy subject, but it can pierce even this robot's heart.
Aww.
Love is a many splendid thing. Love lifts us up where we belong. All you need is love.
All you need is love. Da, 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 da.
For those Moulin Rouge fans who cross over into our podcast somehow,
it's fun.
That was for you.
Because you have Ewan McGregor, and then you have the prequel memes, and there you go. We're all tied together. It's great.
It always comes back to prequel memes.
It goes round and round and round in the circle game. Anyway.
Yes. So anyway, but yeah, this was an interesting one to do more research for, and it's interesting actually hosting. So.
And there's more to go.
I know there's more. So, in addition,
maybe we'll have a Valentine's Day show.
Actually, that would kind of be the perfect timing, wouldn't it?
Right?
Should we delay Roshar until then and do
that's
that
what
for Valentine's?
We'll plan Roshar.
Okay, so keep all your mushy Roshar thoughts until Valentine's time, and then we'll talk. Mm-hmm. So,
and maybe by that time we'll know when we're finally going to get the next book.
We know.
November 17th.
November 17th.
Really? I missed that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is a depressing note for me to end on.
Jordan, you need to pay attention to our social media.
Come on. I think it was even on the Discord, wasn't it? I think we said it on the Discord.
Yep.
Well, this is going to be right here where the blind spot is apparently where that information was. Mental note.
Yeah, write that down. Make a note. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table every 2 weeks on Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we're going to be picking up the upcoming 2019 State of the Sanderson Post. We're going to be picking it apart. If you're not aware, every year on Koloss Head-Munching Day, which just happens to be the same day as Brandon's birthday, December 19th.
It's weird how that lines up, doesn't it?
I know.
It's unbelievable.
Brandon makes a post looking back at what he's gotten done over the past year and what projects he's planning to work on over the next 12 months. There's sure to be lots for us to talk about, so come chat with us about it and join the discussion live on December 30th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table. In the meantime, on behalf of Jordan, Bill, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember,
there's
always another secret.
That's going to line up perfect.